Hello, so it's Robert, volunteer fact checker, and I've got to put that up, and helping if you're scared of many things. And this is about how Putin gets more interested in peace, the tougher Europe and Ukraine are, and more interested in bombing Ukrainian cities when they offer things to him. And that's been a very strong pattern all the way through the war. So when he lost the Battle of Kiev, that was the first time that he started negotiating for peace. But then when he managed to consolidate himself in eastern Donbass, then he lost interest and he put in this nonsense clause which ended the peace process. And this year, when Trump started talking about tomahawks, then that's when Putin started to arrange another meeting decided to arrange a meeting in Hungary. When Trump actually called off the meeting because Putin, when he stopped talking about tomahawks, because Putin wasn't saying anything sensible, and he obviously wasn't interested in peace. The Alaska meeting happened after Trump was tough on sanctions and oil sanctions, and then Putin agreed to have a meeting with Trump in Alaska. And during these meetings, whenever he has a talk on the phone or an actual meeting in person, then Putin's Russian army, they make a point of dropping lots of bombs on Ukrainian cities whenever he's talking to Trump. And that's been a general pattern. They also do that whenever they're having peace negotiations with the Ukrainian negotiators. So basically, when you are nice to Putin, he drops bombs on you. And he takes whatever it is that you give him. And when you are tough with him, then he starts getting interested in peace and doing genuine peace negotiations. And that's been a general pattern all the way through. And so that is why, and so I'm doing this to help scared people, not to try and to in any way suggest what Ukraine or its allies should do. But this is to help you to understand why Ukraine and its allies do this. So please don't be scared when Ukraine and its allies do things that make them seem tough. They are doing this not because they want to expand the war, not because they want to attack Russia itself. They want to help Ukraine defend itself, and they do it because they know from experience that this then gets Putin interested in peace. So their objective is peace. Their objective is not aggression when they're being tough. They are being tough, and especially in saying tough things, because this is how to get Putin interested in peace. That's language he understands. So it can help to undermine his army's capabilities to attack Ukraine. That is what Ukraine does. So it destroys the missiles that Putin is going to fire at Ukraine. So I think everyone can see that when you have air defense systems and they shoot down incoming missiles from Russia, then that is helping to protect Ukraine, and it's not harming Ukraine to do that. Putin did manage to give the impression that air defenses would harm Ukraine in the fall of 2022. So back then, for quite a long time, Ukraine's allies wouldn't give it air defenses because Putin said that if you do, I will escalate, essentially. Eventually, they did give him these air defenses, and naturally, air defenses stopped quite a few of Putin's attacks, because that's what they do. So the air defenses defend against Putin, and they stop his attacks. And then, in the same way, Putin keeps saying, don't give Ukraine capabilities to attack my oil refineries or to attack my soldiers, because if you do, then it'll be much worse for Ukraine. But when Ukraine gets those capabilities, then they naturally, by destroying things that Russia is using to attack Ukraine, then it makes things easier for Ukraine, not worse. It prevents these missiles that could otherwise have been hitting Ukraine, which could have made things much worse. So when Ukraine is stronger, it makes Putin less able to attack Ukraine because they only use their missiles. They don't counterattack. They don't attack Russian civilians. They just use their systems to stop Russia from attacking them in any way that they possibly can. And that, of course, does actually reduce the risk for Ukraine. It doesn't increase the risk. So that's a very basic thing that many people don't seem to understand, which I just wanted to help in this video. So the tomahawks, they also help with peace, if they get them. And the tomahawks will probably, indeed, they've got the flamingo, which is a much more capable weapon, and the tomahawks could be used as a leverage for peace. So the Zelensky has said that he can actually get Putin to the ceasefire table by having the tomahawks without actually using them. He's actually said that. So please, when they say things that make them seem, the Ukraine and its allies seem tough, they do this because they want peace and because they have the very strong pattern and background that this is the way to get Putin interested, along with other things like the oil sanctions, the gasoline shortages. So we've got gasoline shortages. I've talked about the psychological lever there, not able to export his oils, sanctions, and perhaps if Ukraine doesn't get the tomahawks, they might get the flamingos and use those as a military psychological lever. So please, 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 when you hear the news does not explain it properly, that when Zelensky and the allies are seeming tough and saying tough seeming things, the aim is peace and ceasefire. And it is a proven method to get Putin at least to the first steps of talking about peace and talking about a ceasefire. And they believe that if they can increase this and seem more tough and have stronger sanctions, this would actually undermine it if the oil sanctions are stronger, and if Russia is able to destroy more of the oil refineries. The combination of those two will mean that Putin has got much less funding for his war. 90% of the war funding comes from selling the oil. And that is why it's the Ukrainians, allies believe, and my fact-checking suggests this is correct. From the other sources I see that are nothing, even very little, to very independent sources, they agree that the oil is funding the war, and that if they can cut off the oil sales that Putin is getting, then he will have a big gap in his government finances. That means that it's much harder. He's actually got the entire cost of a very expensive modern war, and he will then have to puzzle over how is he going to find the funding for the war. And though there are solutions, the solutions are things that he would not want to do. So he will then have to say, well, do I do these solutions like increasing the tax on ordinary Russians, or do I end the war? And it is possible that at that point he might decide to end the war. It's just trying to find out, and of course Putin is not going to tell us what it is that will persuade him to stop the war, but they're trying out various levers to find out what it is and try and see if they can find the lever that is the one that will eventually persuade Putin that this war, that it's actually is more interest for him to stop it than to keep fighting this pointless war that is really adding nothing to Russia of any significance whatsoever. So that's my, again, short video. Hope it helps. Add it to my blog post.